If you're wondering how to apply for Subclass 491 South Australia State Nomination, then in this video we are going to cover a simple step-by-step process that can save you time and boost your confidence to approach the state for nomination. Hey, Teresa Cardona here from Auspac Visa, where we help Filipino professionals, families, students, partners, trainees, and kababayans to migrate to Australia. If you are new here, please click that subscribe button to be always updated about the changes and new information about Australian visa processing. Okay, so let's jump into it. Now, the opening of the state nomination is definitely one important news that most skilled visa applicants are waiting for. Now, South Australia has announced its opening for state nomination, but the occupation lists are still on hold. But nevertheless, understanding the South Australian nomination process is one that will require heaps of time in front of the computer trying to figure out where to start and what to do. Now, in this video, I'm going to run through the 5 basic steps to help you efficiently manage your South Australian state nomination application, and also for you to find out whether you can meet the requirements of both the department and the South Australian government. Now, just a little bit of caution here. The information that you are about to get here may not be updated when it is released. As I have said, the South Australian government has not released the occupation list, and whether it will be changed or not is something that we don't know, and I really don't know if it's going to be released today. So you will need to directly check the South Australian website to find out and to monitor for yourself. Now, while you are watching, drop a comment below and let me know the state you are applying for and the serious challenges you had to go through or going through, or send me an email or send me a message. Okay, now, and as an added bonus, now make sure that you stick around until the end, because we have also put together a short downloadable brochure that you can use as a quick start reference for Subclass 491 South Australia State Nomination. And before we actually go to the state nomination, I just wanted to make sure that I will cover all the important aspects of 491 state nomination visa. Now, you know that Subclass 491 state nominated visa is a provisional visa that allows the skilled workers and their families to live, to study, and work in the designated regional areas for a period of 5 years. And it is a points-tested visa. And in the case of South Australia, the applicable regions are all postcodes except the cities and major regional centers. Now, the relevant postcodes that are not covered as designated regional areas are in the brochure, which I will give you the link later on. Now, if you are granted this visa, the Subclass 491, you will have the eligibility to apply for a permanent residency visa through Subclass 191 Permanent Residency Skilled Regional Visa. All right. Now, so I think that's clear. So now let's go to the 5 basic steps. Now, step number 1 is to determine whether you will pass the eligibility requirements of the Department of Home Affairs. Now, what are these requirements? Requirement number 1 is you must have achieved at least 65 points or higher in the points test. Now, requirement number 2 is that you have obtained a positive skills assessment in your nominated occupation. Now, your skills assessment must have been obtained in the 3 years before the date of your invitation. Now, if the assessment was for a shorter period, meaning there is an expiry, then that period must not have expired. Now, the third one is that you must be under 45 years old. And fourth, you must have obtained at least a competent level of English, unless a higher English is required by the relevant skilling authority. Now, fifth is that you must meet the health and character requirements, especially at the time of the decision. And then sixth is you must have paid back the debts to the Australian government if you have any, or if that is applicable. Now, seventh is that you must agree to the Australian values statement. And last is that you have no previous visa cancellation or refusal. Now, if you do not have any idea about the threshold requirements of the Department of Home Affairs, now talk to your registered migration agent first or contact us and we will be happy to help. Now, once you have determined that you can meet the threshold, you can then complete the skill select where you can lodge your EOI or your expression of interest. Now, here you will claim points for state nomination, your English, your age, your work experience, study in Australia, your civil status, your professional year, your community language. If you need to calculate your points, I'm putting the link in the description below. Now, it is important in this stage that you choose South Australia as the nominating state because South Australia gives preference to those who have specifically selected South Australia than just putting any other state. Now, you will have to remember that there are two EOIs, all right? One with the department through the skill select, and then another one is with the South Australian government through their own portal. Now, if you want to know more about EOI and how it is properly done, you can check my other video. I will post the link below. Now, step number 2 is to submit an expression of interest for South Australian nomination. Now, in this step, you will need to register your interest to seek a nomination from the South Australian government. Now, there is a portal where you can create an account to register your interest, and I will put the link in the description below. Now, I would like to assume that you have done at least a self-check to assess your situation and whether or not you will meet the state requirement even before reaching step number 2. Now, if you have not done that and you still don't know what to do, now talk to a registered migration agent. They can help you find out your likelihood of passing the state nomination requirements. Okay? So just to recall that step number 2 is submitting the expression of interest to South Australian government. So in here, you will have to make sure that you meet the 2 mandatory or eligibility requirements that South Australia wants. Now, what are those? Okay. One is that you must have an occupation in the current South Australian skilled list or the SASOL. Now, the website as of yesterday stated that the new occupation list is unavailable. However, in the past, South Australia used the old SASOL and the Department of Home Affairs occupation list as well as the PMSOL. Now, I'm going to post the links of those occupation list in the description below, but you have to check the South Australian government and see whether a new occupation list has been released. But for now, we will have to wait and we will see for the new updates from South Australian government. Now, second is you are eligible for South Australia 491 nomination if you are currently working in South Australia for at least 3 months in your nominated occupation or closely related occupation for at least 20 hours a week. Now, for PhD graduates in South Australia, you do not have to meet the work experience requirement. So now, in addition to the 2 eligibility or mandatory requirements, now South Australia has some preferences on who to nominate. Now, preference means that the applicant who has the qualities that I am about to mention will have a better chance of being invited. So, what does South Australia prefers? Now, South Australia will prefer those applicants with proficient level of English, as in overall or higher than proficient English. Now, those with at least 90 points in their EOI, including the state nomination points. And those who are currently working in South Australia for at least in the last 12 months in their nominated or closely related occupation and would be claiming points for Australian work experience. And those applicants who are currently living and working in outer regional South Australia. And those applicants who meet the critical skill list. Okay, so step number 3, wait for the invitation for nomination. Now, waiting for the result of your expression of interest from the state is probably one of the most excruciating parts of this process, especially if you know that the places are so limited. Now, not all applications get approved or issued an invitation. So, if you receive one, congratulations, you made it. So, once a decision on a nomination application has been made, it will be reflected on the Skilled and Business Migration application page. And if you are approved for state nomination, you will receive an email from the Department of Home Affairs inviting you to apply for your visa. Okay, step number 4 is to apply for Subclass 491 to the Department of Home Affairs through the IMI account. Now, once an invitation is received, apply for a visa within 60 days of being nominated by South Australia and make the necessary payment through the Department of Home Affairs website. Now, you have to remember that unapproved nomination from the state does not mean an easy approval from the Department of Home Affairs. Now, you will have to make sure that all the declarations you made in your EOI is correct and that you can prove all of them. Now, failure to prove all of the claims can lead to a refusal. So, if you are not sure on what you're doing, contact us or talk to a registered migration agent. Now, step number 5 is the visa outcome. Now, this is a decision made on your visa application. Now, if your visa application is successful, you will receive a visa grant with details of visa conditions. Now, if your visa application is refused, now the letter will provide the reasons and will tell you whether you have an opportunity to make an appeal. So, be mindful that if you are granted a Subclass 491, make sure that you comply with all the visa conditions, because non-compliance can adversely affect your next stage, which is the Subclass 191 permanent visa. So, in the final note, you must know that South Australia has different categories and streams for Subclass 491 depending on your situation. Now, you may be eligible for some concessions and waivers based on the following categories. Now, Talent and Innovators Program. If you can bring new ideas, skills, technology to South Australia, including creating local jobs, then you can get some concessions, you can get some waivers. Now, in this particular stream, there are substreams like substream for employment, independent talent, and small business and startups. Now, another part of the stream is the international graduates of South Australia have also some access to the additional waivers and concessions to assist them to qualify for state nomination. And of course, there are some leeway provided to those who are currently living and working in South Australia, specifically if they have been residing in South Australia for a time and is working in the nominated occupation or in the outer regional South Australia. Now, if you are working and living in the outer regional Australia, your application will be considered, but you will need to send an email to South Australian government to let them know that you have lodged your EOI. Now, these concessions and waivers are not yet published and they are not yet available as of this time. But if you are falling in any of those categories, you might want to watch out and keep on monitoring. So, in summary, the 5 steps to seek the nomination from South Australia and Subclass 491 visa application are: first, complete the Department of Home Affairs Skill Select application and points test and make sure that you meet the threshold requirements. Now, second is to submit a registration of interest for South Australian state nomination and ensure that you have met the mandatory requirements and note whether you meet some of South Australian preferences and concessions. Now, third is wait for the invitation for nomination, and fourth is to apply for the visa to the department through IMI account. Now, the last is to receive the visa application outcome. Now, To make this simple to you to understand, I am posting a link for a downloadable information sheet that includes the 5 steps to Subclass 491 South Australian nomination and a checklist. So hit the link on screen now, or there's a link somewhere in the description below to grab your copy, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week.